But relatively speaking, man, my groups that I created sold more records than him. All of them, 357. My group sold more records. Angie B sold more records than X.
Yeah. MC Hammer don't play.
When you hear the name MC Hammer, images of gold parachute pants, electrifying dance moves, and the iconic anthem You Can't Touch This instantly come to mind. But behind the glitz and glamour lies a story far grittier than most realize. Long before the world knew him as Hammer, he was Stanley Kirk Burrell, a kid from the hard-scrabble streets of Oakland, California. His rise to fame wasn't just about catchy hooks and flashy performances. It was a battle against the odds, a testament to resilience in a world where survival was never guaranteed. This is the story of how a boy from the hood became a legend, not just in music, but in life.
Let's go back to the beginning, man, because there's a lot of people listening to K-Day now. Obviously, we're back in the day music.
Yeah.
But they want to know the story. They know about you. They heard about you, but they want to enjoy your journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, let's go back to when it all started. Like, you started with a group rap. I think you were involved with Christian rap as well in the beginning.
Before MC Hammer.
Yeah.
Before MC Hammer, we started with, it was two of us, and we were the Holy Ghost Boy.
Growing up in East Oakland in the 1960s was no walk in the park. For young Hammer, life was a daily grind, navigating the dangers of the streets while clinging to the hope of a better future. Born into a family of 9 siblings, he knew what it meant to share too little in a cramped apartment. When his father left, his mother became the glue that held everything together, working tirelessly to keep food on the table. It would have been easy to fall into the traps of the neighborhood, to let the chaos consume him. But Hammer had one thing keeping him grounded: his mother's unwavering strength. Her resilience wasn't just an inspiration, it was the foundation of his character, the driving force behind his rise from the streets to the spotlight.
He played that part. Yeah. But even him, Oakland is a different kind of place, man. I'll line you 10 Oakland dudes up in a row, and I bet you couldn't pick out the most violent one. Like you just couldn't do it. You probably, I don't know what you would base it on, but I'm sure you'd pick wrong.
Superstars aren't born, they're forged in the fires of adversity. For Hammer, that fire burned in the heart of East Oakland, where survival often meant making impossible choices. As a kid, he saw the allure of hustling, the promise of quick money in a world that offered few opportunities. He even flirted with the idea, until a single moment changed everything. His father, absent for much of his life, reappeared at a critical juncture. Instead of anger, he met Hammer with raw emotion, tears, disappointment, and a plea to choose a different path. That moment was a wake-up call. Hammer realized he wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for his future. And that fight would take him from the shadows of the streets to the brightest stages in the world.
Yes, sir, MC Hammer. In other words, I got the message. I heard about you, and I seen your work, and what the 357 and all them could do.
While many kids in his neighborhood were swept up by the streets, Hammer found a different kind of hustle, one that didn't involve danger but demanded just as much grit. He sold stray baseballs outside Oakland A's games, breakdanced for tips, and used his natural charm to draw crowds. Even as a kid, Hammer had an undeniable confidence that opened doors others couldn't imagine. One day, he boldly approached Charlie Finley, the owner of the Oakland A's, and asked for free entry to the game. Instead of dismissing him, Finley was struck by the kid's audacity. Not only did he let Hammer in, but he also gave him a job as the team's bat boy. That gig changed everything. The players took a liking to him, especially because of his resemblance to baseball legend Hank Aaron, earning him the nickname Little Hammer. It was here, in the dugouts of a baseball stadium, that his iconic name was born.
Right.
And you definitely led the way. Trust me, believe me, man. So when you start that, man, doing your Hammer thing, and of course that name comes, so I think about you being a bat boy back in the day with the A's. I mean, so your career could have went a couple different ways, right?
Right. Yeah, I was, playing baseball, loving it, and I got named Hammer by Reggie Jackson. Because when I was little, I looked exactly like Hammer and Hank Aaron, and Hammer and Hank Aaron's nickname is the Hammer.
Yeah.
So
working for the Oakland A's wasn't just a job for Hammer, it was a masterclass in discipline and determination. As a bat boy, he wasn't just fetching bats, he was studying the game, building relationships, and proving his worth.
Hammer became
For a while,
cultural phenomenon.
he even dreamed of
His flashy
going
outfits,
pro in
signature
baseball.
dance moves, and
But life
larger-than-life
had other
persona
plans.
made him a household
After
name.
leaving
For a
school,
while, it
Hammer
seemed like
faced a
nothing
harsh
could stop him.
reality. His options were limited. The streets were always there, tempting him with quick fixes, but his mother's unwavering belief in him kept him grounded. Instead of giving in, he made a bold decision. he joined the Navy. For 3 years, he embraced the structure and discipline of military life, honing skills that would later define his career. The Navy wasn't just an escape, it was a crucible. When he returned to Oakland, he was sharper, tougher, and more focused than ever. It was also during this time that his faith became a cornerstone of his identity. Hammer wasn't just chasing success, he was on a mission.
Dope.
Well, I live my life that way. Thank you. I live my life that way. If everybody is doing one thing, I don't want to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like having the power and or the courage to be different, to do your thing. I think that's real important. And
by the early 1980s, Hammer was searching for a way to channel his energy, and music became his answer. His first foray into the industry was with a Christian rap group called the Holy Ghost Boys. While the group didn't take off, it was a crucial learning experience. Hammer was figuring out the game, discovering what worked and what didn't. Realizing he couldn't wait for a record deal to fall into his lap, he took matters into his own hands. Using connections from his days with the Oakland A's, he scraped together enough money to start his own label, Busted Records. This was where the real hustle began. He recorded his first album, Feel My Power, in 1986, funding the entire project himself. Without a major label backing him, Hammer went old school, selling CDs out of his car, performing.
Hammer was a big dog, man. He got respect in the streets. He came from a respected crew, and they handled business, him and his brother Lewis and the crew. And, when we saw each other, it was respect and love. And then, when we weren't around each other, you take little jabs and talk. It was
in local clubs, and promoting himself like a one-man marketing machine. His energy was infectious, and people couldn't ignore him. Against all odds, he sold 60,000 copies independently, a staggering feat for an artist with no industry connections. By the late 1980s, Hammer wasn't just gaining traction, he was creating a movement. His performances were electrifying, blending high-energy choreography with military-level precision. Drawing from his Navy background, he ran grueling 8-hour rehearsals and enforced strict discipline, ensuring his crew was as sharp as he was. But success came with critics. Some in the hip-hop community saw him as too polished, too commercial, more entertainer than rapper. Purists dismissed his style, claiming he prioritized spectacle over substance. Hammer, however, never wavered. He knew exactly who he was and wasn't about to change to fit someone else's mold. If anything, the criticism only fueled his drive to prove them wrong.
Well, like every young person, I always dreamed of doing something big, aspire to do something big. That's what everybody, some of the people grow up wanting to be successful actors, athletes, entertainers. Very few people say I want to grow up and be like this great CEO. That's a different thing. But people aspire for spotlight, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so I hoped to do it big. And I knew I would put the work in.
By the time Hammer signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Capitol Records in 1988, he wasn't just another rapper, he was a phenomenon waiting to explode. His first 2 major label albums, Let's Get It Started and Please Hammer Don't Hurt M, catapulted him into superstardom. With hits like Pray, Too Legit to Quit, and the iconic You Can't Touch This, Hammer became more than a musician, he was a cultural icon. His flashy outfits, signature dance moves, and larger-than-life persona made him a household name. For a while, it seemed like nothing could stop him. But behind the glitz and glamour, the pressure was mounting. Hammer's clean-cut image and mainstream appeal made him a target in the rap world. Some artists saw him as a sellout, someone who had compromised hip-hop's edge for commercial success. Others simply didn't respect him as an artist. At first, Hammer tried to brush off the criticism. But one thing was clear. He wasn't about to let anyone disrespect him, especially when it came to his family. This was the side of Hammer that most people never saw. The world knew him as the guy who brought hip-hop into the mainstream, but those who crossed him quickly learned that there was more to Hammer than the flashy dance moves and parachute pants. As his fame skyrocketed, so did the rumors, whispers of his street connections, his willingness to confront rivals head-on, and his unwavering loyalty to those who had been with him from the start. Hammer wasn't just an entertainer. He was a man who could light up a stage one moment and handle business off stage the next.
MC Hammer was there. Approached me. He was like, Red, I'm going to tell you something. You young. but I don't allow nobody talking about my mama. You understand me? I said, yes, sir. Because, yo, we was already in Oakland with EPMD, and we damn near had to bounce up out of there for that.
And mainstream appeal made him a target. To some rappers, he wasn't real hip-hop. They saw him as a sellout, someone who had watered down the genre for commercial success. Others simply didn't respect him as an artist. First, Hammer brushed off the criticism. But when the disrespect got personal, especially involving his family, he wasn't about to let it slide. This was the side of Hammer most people never saw. The world knew him as the superstar who brought hip-hop into the mainstream. But those who crossed him? They quickly learned there was more to Hammer than parachute pants and catchy hooks. As his fame skyrocketed, so did the rumors, whispers of his street ties, his willingness to confront rivals, and his unbreakable loyalty to those who had been with him from the start. Hammer wasn't just an entertainer. He was a man who could own the stage one moment and handle business the next.
Look at this. Hammer was coming off a tour. Some stuff had happened. I can't give you the specifics, but some stuff had happened that was like some real life. Could have been shootings. Could have been stuff had happened out on the tour.
On stage, MC Hammer was all about smiles, energy, and positivity, but off stage, he was a man who didn't tolerate disrespect, especially when it came to his family. A lot of people didn't realize it, but Hammer wasn't afraid to pull up on someone who crossed the line. And if you even thought about mentioning his mother, that was a mistake you wouldn't make twice. His loyalty to family was legendary, and he made it clear, some things weren't up for discussion. His rise to fame wasn't just about talent and hard work. It was about protecting his name, his legacy, and the people closest to him. One of the first people to experience this firsthand? Redman, the rapper, included a skit on his first album mocking Hammer, and even mentioning his mother. To some, it was just a joke. To Hammer, it was personal. When they crossed paths on Yo! MTV Raps, Hammer checked him on the spot. Years later, Redman admitted, "I'll laugh about Hammer now, but that was deep. He used to check anybody who talked." And Redman wasn't the only one. Third Base found out the hard way when Hammer allegedly put a bounty on them after they disrespected him in a song. Was the bounty real? They weren't taking chances. The group even hired street protection while in California, just to be safe for Hammer. It was never about starting drama. It was about making sure people knew some lines weren't meant to be crossed.
He was like, Red, I'm gonna tell you something, you young, but I don't allow nobody talking about my mama. You understand me? I said, yes, sir.
It wasn't just underground rappers who underestimated MC Hammer. Even some of hip-hop's biggest names learned the hard way. Take Ice Cube, for example, one of the most respected figures in rap. In his song True to the Game, Cube took a direct shot at Hammer. But he didn't stop there. The music video featured a Hammer look-alike being tied up and thrown into a trunk. The message? A blatant diss, and word got back to Hammer fast. Hammer and his crew pulled up on Ice Cube at Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Face to face. Witnesses say Hammer didn't waste words. He told Cube straight up, "That ain't cool." Realizing the situation could escalate quickly, Cube reassured Hammer it wouldn't happen again. But this wasn't just about one diss track. This was about respect. Despite his polished, mainstream image, Hammer had deep street ties. His entourage? Legendary. At times, he rolled with over 100 people, including real street figures. Comedian Godfrey once described Hammer's crew, "It was like nothing I'd ever seen. Gangsters, dancers, everybody. It was wild." Hammer wasn't just famous. He was respected in ways most people never realized.
Hammer didn't hesitate to address it.
Young age, too. I'm like, yo, this is not playing.
Yes, it was about duality of the world. He was the guy in colorful parachute pants, rapping with an infectious smile, but behind the scenes? Hammer was disciplined, business savvy, and a leader who demanded respect. Ran his crew like a military unit, enforcing strict curfews and personal accountability. "I accept my responsibility," he once said. "If that makes me a disciplinarian, then thank you." And when record labels pressured him to dirty up his image to sell more records, Hammer shut it down immediately. "That's not me," he said. "I've been around people involved in that. I'm going to continue to do what I do, whether they like it or not." Love him or hate him, MC Hammer never changed for anyone.
Every time I'm going dressed, it was ridiculous. I didn't know who that dude was. You put your foot in your mouth, said a couple things. You let smooth taste fool you. You thought the Running Man was more than a dance.
Even as Hammer's career evolved, his reputation never faded. In the mid-90s, he made a move no one saw coming. He signed with Death Row Records. At the time, Death Row was the most feared label in hip-hop, led by Suge Knight and home to Tupac, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg. Most assumed Hammer was toughening up his image. But in reality, he never changed. He wasn't signing up to be a gangster rapper, he was signing up to stay true to himself, because beyond the rumors, the industry drama, and the flashy stage performances, Hammer was never just about the fame, it was about making a difference.
Everybody talking, but you fit Death Row, because you in the right jury. Love cars like this. That's right. You like to work hard.
And that wraps up the incredible journey of MC Hammer, a man who was so much more than a hitmaker. But now, it's your turn. Fire. Was Hammer's clean-cut image a breath of fresh air for hip-hop? Or did it overshadow his street credibility? Fire. And what do you think about his no-nonsense stance on respect and family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get this conversation going. White heavy checkmark like if you enjoyed this deep dive. White heavy checkmark subscribe for more legendary hip-hop stories. White heavy checkmark share with someone who needs to hear this. Until next time, stay tuned for more Celeb Chronicles.